Hey y'all, today we're going to be painting this beautiful and fun ocean painting, and we're going to finish it with some 3D sparkles to give it some 3D dimension at the end. So I hope you enjoy. So to start, you're going to have your canvas. I like to go ahead and lay out the paints I'm going to be using. So this is ultramarine blue. This is process cyan, or similar to cerulean, and then of course titanium white. I use a lot of that, so I like to get the larger tubes. We'll be using a little bit of the cadmium red, as well as the darker yellow, the yellow ochre for the sand. A little bit later I'll pull in some of the lemon yellow, or the process, what's called the process yellow from Winsor Newton. These are the Galleria acrylic paints. So that's what we're going to be using today, and just use whatever you have that's similar to that, and we'll be talking about the different qualities of the colors as we go along. At the end, these are the paints that I used for adding in the glitter. So in the ocean I used the blue. I will list this down in the description. And then for the sand I used the white and the clear transparent glitter. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and lay out your white. You're going to need a little bit more of your white than the other colors. I'm going to go ahead and pull the blue that will go into the water. This is your cerulean or your cyan. And then I like to kind of tint my ocean water a little bit with yellow. So this is where I didn't lay this out in the beginning, but this is called, from Winsor Newton Galeria, it's called process yellow. It's basically a lemon yellow, and you're going to just add a little dab of that. Your darker yellow here is what we're going to be using later for the sand. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lay those colors out in your palette, and I am currently getting into watercolor, so I'm going to be using this green brush you'll see here in a minute, from my daughter. So as long as, you know, if you use a very inexpensive brush, it's fine. I have found, as long as the bristles don't come out. That's the number one thing. If you're just really on a budget, just make sure that, just do some testing and make sure the bristles don't come out. So I love this Liquitex pouring medium. It's a really great way to make your colors stretch. And so you'll see how I use that as we go along as well. It's basically just increasing the fluidity, and it has a little bit different result rather than just adding water to your acrylic paints. So here's this the green brush, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water to get started. And then from here I'm going to go ahead and start mixing the colors to make a basic color for the ocean. So you'll notice that on my palette, this is what I like to do. When you're mixing colors, I like to just have the different gradients and the different results from your mixing kind of spread out, because realism to me, and this is not necessarily a realistic painting, but I want the colors to resemble the ocean as realistically as possible. So the layout, we can be a little bit fun, we can have a little fun with it, you know, and just be playful. So this is the other blue I'm going to use, and this is going to be primarily for the sky, but I will grab a little bit of it here and there for just placing a little bit in the ocean here and there, just to add that variation. Variation is key to me. That's what I'm getting at. Whether it's realistic or not, I just think it just really adds a lot of interest when you have a lot of different colors, as opposed to just blending them all to make a solid color. I like to leave a little bit of the original colors there, and then kind of have them blend on the canvas partially, like partially blend on the canvas. So you'll see as we go along. I'm adding in a little bit of this pouring medium just to stretch the paint. This is what I like to do. And then go ahead and lay down your base layer for the ocean. And as you can see, it's kind of got a little bit of a dry brush effect using the pouring medium as opposed to a lot of water. And that's okay because we're going to be layering on more color as we go. So this is where you can really get creative, and you can just play. You know, don't take this so serious. This is why I really enjoy paintings like this, because you can play, you can have fun. You don't have to take them so serious. I like to make the horizon line a little bit above the middle of the canvas. And then I'm going to leave a little bit at the bottom for the sand. Now, as far as getting your horizon line exactly level, what you can do to start, if you'd like, I didn't do this, but you can use a ruler on each side of your canvas and just mark down both on the left side and the right side 2 little dots with a pencil. And that way, and then you can just connect with a straight line if you want to be really sure that your horizon line is level and it's where you want it to be and all of that. That's just a little first step you can do. But I will actually explain how I corrected my horizon line, because I just like to paint by eye. You know, the human eye can detect very, very minor differences. And so here I'm mixing in some of the darker blue. It's a little bit different shade. And I find that when you're painting an ocean painting, to have a different blue be the prominent blue in the ocean versus the prominent blue in the sky, it just really helps to just tie it all together. And so in the middle, you have a choice here. You can either just start to blend together, just run your brush over both the sky and the ocean, the horizon line there, and just kind of blend them together. And, you know, a lot of times in real life, you know, you can't exactly tell where the horizon line is. It's like way out in the distance. It truly does all blend together. So this is your choice. You can go in and you can blend it, or you can be very strategic. What I like to do is this. I like to blend and then go back later and refine it if I feel like the painting calls for it, if it needs it. And so I'm just going to be adding in, you'll see I'm sweeping back and forth, but I'm just touching the ocean. I'm not pushing down as I sweep back and forth across the ocean. From there, if you'd like to paint the sides of your canvas, you can. And as you can see, I'm just trying to, you know, get the paint on the sides without sweeping up into the front part of the canvas. So, but just as you're sweeping, my technique with something like this is just to kind of lift and touch, you know, just kind of dabbing here and there as I'm sweeping. I do that with both the ocean and the sky. And as you're grabbing the different colors on your palette, like here I'm grabbing just a touch of red to put in the sky. It's going to blend in with the blue and give you a little bit of pink or a purplish pink, just for a little bit of a realistic effect as far as the colors go. So from here, I'm going to add in a little bit more on the sides, and I like to try and make the colors on the sides, if I'm going to paint the sides of a canvas, match the area on the front of the canvas where the sides meet. And so I'm just dabbing again and correcting where I have come over into the front a little bit here with my finger. But you can always touch up the sides later as well. If you want to wait until the front dries, you can do that. A lot of people do that. And so if you're new to painting and you have a larger brush like that, when you're rinsing it, a lot of times you can press it down into the bottom of your water jar and or your water cup, and that will help to release the paint from it as well. And then I like to use paper towels over to the side. You can't see them, but I dab the excess water off of my brush from there. So I'm grabbing the yellow ochre and the cadmium red and just a touch of the lemon yellow to lighten it up, and then a lot of white. This is going to make up the sand, just the basic base level layer of the sand on my painting. So I'm going to mix that together, but I'm not mixing it completely. I'm partially mixing it, and then I'm going to go ahead and sweep, and same thing, I'm just going to sweep and kind of dab. On your base layer, I have found it's okay to not try to be so artistic, I guess, with your brush strokes. If you're going to be painting in layers, I think that just your first layer, to have that be all one color all the way across, is completely fine. And then you can go back with acrylics and add in other colors, both while it's wet as well as after it's dried. So that's what I like to do. And so you'll see that I'm doing a mixture of both techniques, kind of dabbing it on for the first base layer, as well as just smoothing in and just filling in the canvas as well, so there's no white space. And you may hear my dog snoring, so just she likes to bark and run in her sleep as well. So sorry if you guys hear that, but she's right next to me. So okay, I've cleaned my brush. I'm going to go back in, and I'm grabbing a little bit of the lemon yellow, or the process yellow as Winsor Newton calls it, some white, along with that cerulean or process cyan. And then I'm just going to add in a little bit lighter color here towards the shore as the water's coming up on the sand. And this is where we can start to have a lot more fun. We can be a lot more carefree with our brush strokes, and you can like for example with my brush, I've turned my brush on the side where I'm sweeping, making my sweeping motion back and forth, using the bristles in a narrow line. And so to me, this just gives it a little bit more of a realistic look, that there are in fact waves coming up to the shore. And when you're loading your brush for this, this is where, like I said, you can leave maybe a corner of your brush has solid white, and maybe, you know, you've dabbed a little bit of the yellow and the blue on the other parts of the brush, and then when you apply it, you're going to see how that comes out on your paper. So a lot, or your canvas rather, so a lot of this painting is about the process for me. It's about art for art's sake, because as you're building up the ocean and the sky, and literally every part of it, the beach too, you can place so many layers on it that as you're doing that, you can try out different techniques, different color combinations. Think about loading your brush differently and try out how it looks. If it looks bad when it comes out on your canvas, you can just paint over it. You know, it's not a big deal. So that's my recommendation. Just try out different ways that you load your brush, how much you blend on your palette prior to applying it versus letting it blend as you apply it, and then how you apply your brush strokes, the pressure, the motions. If you keep it down just like I'm doing here all the way across and just apply it smoothly, or if you sweep it back and forth. I have found that the sky, you know, I like to really focus on that horizon line, and I just kind of work it throughout the whole painting, and you'll see that. But the sky, I like to really flip my wrist over and just make quick motions, and you'll see that more as I add in the different colors for the sky. It just kind of gives it a little bit of a wispy look when you do that, and just makes it a little bit more realistic with the clouds. So, and then on the ocean, instead of pressing down the entire way, and I'm working on the edges here, but instead of pressing down on your sweeping motions as you're going back and forth across the ocean, just consider light pressure, like what I'm doing here. I've got a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm just very lightly dragging it across. And that just very easily, without much effort at all, adds in a little bit more realism to the ocean. It gives it the look of waves. And at any point when you like your painting, you can stop. There is such a thing as overworking, in my opinion. Doesn't mean you can't fix it to where you'll be happy, but I have in the past, in my opinion, I feel like I've ruined a lot of paintings because I just didn't leave well enough alone. So don't be afraid. Even if you're early on in your painting, whatever it is, if you're happy with it, just let it be. That was something that I learned early on in my art journey, is just to know when to stop. So, and that in itself is important to learn. You can go straight into your white like I'm doing here, and you can just kind of go across and just dab a little bit of the white, titanium white paint directly on the edge of the water. And then what I like to do is just work it from there. You can also, I'm going to show you guys, you can use a palette knife and a toothbrush if you want. And I wasn't really crazy about the toothbrush, but I wanted to do this here because this is where we can play. And I wanted to show you guys just how it looks differently. So for the palette knife, you can see the difference there between what I did earlier with my brush. This is going to put on a much thicker layer, and it's not going to spread out as you drag the palette knife across as easily as the brush did earlier. So, but it's great if you just really want to emphasize a particular area, maybe the crest of a wave. It's great for that. But you can also just kind of dab that in. But I just really recommend, if you have a palette knife and a brush and a toothbrush, this is the kind of painting where you get to play around with all that, because you can very, very easily fix it if you don't like it. So here I've shown you guys there where you can add in different colors as well, just like we do on our brush. You can do that with your palette knife too. I think when you're adding in multiple colors like that to blend as you apply them, I think personally that the result is better with a brush. I think the palette knife, the results seem to be better with one color. But I tried several different things. You'll get to see that here. So. Consider when you are going along the edge of the water here, just very light pressure, just kind of dabbing, just literally tapping almost as you're moving across. That can give you a really, really neat effect, especially as regards to the foam, the sea foam. You can really make it look realistic. So just a tiny bit of paint, not a lot. And I found sometimes solid white is great, and sometimes you want it to be a super light blue, not a solid white. So you can try both. But just a little bit, and then just light pressure and tapping and dabbing. So the color that we've made with the lemon yellow and the cerulean and titanium white, I'm going to compare that with my new tube of pale olive. And I thought that the pale olive initially, when I looked at it, was not really olive enough. I thought it was a little bit too cool, but compared to the cool green that I just made, you can really see the warmth in the color. So the pale olive is on the right there, and then on the left is the color that I made. So I think that for the cool ocean water, I'm going to stick with the two colors I mixed together and not use the pale olive. So I thought I would try dabbing on some of the white with a toothbrush. And instead of just dipping your toothbrush down into the white paint, I found that it was better to spread it on with my fingertips, because there's a lot of divots down in the toothbrush, and it would just kind of hold the paint down in there and waste it and wouldn't actually touch the surface of the canvas. I didn't care for the outcome. I didn't intend to splatter it because this painting is mostly of still waters, very light waves, nothing where there's crashing waves and a need for, ocean spray. That would be a perfect time to splatter the paint off of a toothbrush. But I thought I just want to see how it looks to dab it on. I didn't personally care for it, but I wanted to show you as well how it looked, and also to show you how you can go back and you can paint on top of something you don't care for. And that's something that I really love about acrylic paints. They're very, very forgiving in my experience. So you'll notice that there's going to be parts that I want to try and preserve, where I laid down some white and some really light turquoise and green blue, but I'm going to try to fill in with a little bit of the green blue and the turquoise with my round brush. And so this is just a good chance for me to show you my techniques and how I'm just going to go over this white, and I'm just going to sweep back and forth. And I think it's okay that you can still see some of the white as well, because again, it just adds depth to the ocean. You're going to see a lot of different variations between your lights and your darks and your mediums, and I think that the more you have, and this is achieved really, really well through layering, whether intentional or not, like this, if it's an accident, either way, you're building up many layers of variations with your shadows and your highlights and all this. So this is really going to just add depth and interest to your painting. And I love doing paintings like this because, again, at any point, if you like it, you can stop. And it's sort of like the kind of painting that you can just enjoy the experience and sort of watch it become. It's like a painting that just becomes on its own, and you're just going along with it. And at any point, you can just say, that's perfect, I'm going to stop, I have no idea how I did that, or I didn't mean to do that, or whatever it is, and you can just be happy with it at any point. But I'm going in and adding a little bit of some darks, and as I'm adding in the darks, you'll see that some are going to have more green, some are going to have more blue. And I love this. I love the different tones in the ocean, because in real life, that's how I see it, When I was going through art classes in college, they taught us to squint. That was just a really cool tip that you can, as you're observing whatever it is you're going to paint, especially like a landscape or something like this, you can squint your eyes, and that really condenses everything down to your shadow areas and your highlights, and it kind of takes away the details so that you're not distracted by all the details. And that little tip really stuck with me all these years. So you're just sweeping back and forth with light pressure. This is where I've decided to go in and define my horizon line a little bit more. And either way works. Either way, whether you define it partially across and leave the other half or third of the horizon line blended in with the sky. Maybe there's a rolling fog that's coming in, or a mist, and it's blurring the horizon line. You could leave it like that. You could leave the entire horizon line where it just blends into the sky, or you could define it more. It's just totally up to you. So there's a lot of freedom with these kinds of paintings, and to me that's what makes them so fun. And there's really no wrong way. And that's really what I'm trying to demonstrate here, is that you can really have a lot of freedom and enjoy playing around with these kind of paintings. So again, I'm just adding in some depth with different tones of blues and greens, and I'm just sweeping across, and I'm just filling in some of the areas and leaving others, and letting the painting come together. So it's time to clean the brush and prepare to work on the sky a little bit. So I'm going to go in here where I've got some titanium white and some of the darker blue, which is called ultramarine, and I'm just going to be just kind of lightly going over. It's sort of like I use my brush as my visual tool, and I just kind of preload it, and then I just sweep it across, sometimes without even touching. And as I'm sweeping back and forth above the canvas, I'm scanning it, and I am looking, any moment I can drop my brush and I can start to dab a little bit and add in just the impression of a cloud. And so that way it's placed so lightly to start with. If I decide that I don't want to have a cloud there, I can very easily just blend it back in with the sky. If I do like the placement of it, I can go back and build on it and enhance it and make it stand out more. So that's what I'm doing here, and I've decided just to make these clouds very just very light, essentially. Nothing that is going to contrast a lot with the sky. The sky is already bright, and I wanted that intentionally for this painting so that all of the different colors in the ocean would stand out, just like a bright sunny day. So the clouds are there because they add interest to the sky, but again, I'm not going to add a lot of contrast, and I'm just dabbing. I'm just using my round brush. I believe this is a size 6. I'll look and drop it in the description to be sure, but I'm just dabbing, and just a very organic, non-structured shape, and mostly titanium white, a little bit of the ultramarine. And then what's interesting is you'll see on my palette at the upper right hand corner, that's where I have the ultramarine blue and the white blended together, but just beneath that is where I also have some of the yellow ochre. And if you will grab just a tiny bit of that yellow ochre as you go into your clouds, it will give it just a little pop of realism. And part of a good layout of a painting is to balance out your colors. And so just a little impression, just a tiny touch of a color at the top that is the same color you already have at the bottom. For example, like here we have the sand, is the yellow ochre. If you touch your clouds with the yellow ochre, it will just balance the painting out and create a lot of just visual interest. So you can lightly sweep your brush across with some white over the ocean, kind of dry brushing a little bit, and that just kind of adds a little bit of foam, a little bit of sea foam look to the ocean. And then from there, I'm going to add in some cadmium red into the yellow ochre, and I believe there's a little bit of the lemon yellow in there as well, and then of course some titanium white to balance it out. And I'm just trying to make a nice sand color, but again, I'm not blending completely. I'm leaving these colors partially blended on my brush, and then I'm going to dry brush on top of that base layer that I have down for the sand. And this is just going to create a little bit of texture and some visual interest as the different colors are not fully blended as we brush them on. This is the Folkart Glitterific fine paint, glitter paint in Evergreen, and I've already got paint on my hands. So I'm just going to squeeze it out. It's very thick, and just dab it on with my fingers. And I just really encourage you to check the ingredients and the safety of skin contact with any of your art supplies. I learned all about that years ago when I was starting out in art, how some of them actually are somewhat toxic. And so, but I felt okay using this, and so I'm just going to dab it on, and it was super, super thick. So a little bit goes a long way if you're willing to spread it out. So just very lightly tapping it, and I focused on the areas that turned out to look like they were probably the highlights in the ocean, specifically where the sun might be hitting them. And these are the kind of paintings where, like I said, for me, it's the actual process that's fun. And so as they come together, you'll often see a particular part that looks like it's where the sun would be hitting your landscape or where the light would be shining. I mean, a lot of times you can create your paintings with that in mind from the get-go. You know what angle is your light source coming from, because you're going to need to know that to add in your highlights and your shadows. But if you're just doing something for fun like this and you're just kind of letting it come together, sort of like painting itself, I have found that it will have a natural area that already looks highlighted, and then that's what I chose to add the most of the glitter to, just to emphasize that light source. Sort of like in real life where the sun hits the ocean, you know, it kind of sparkles. And I also just dabbed a little bit, or no, I haven't done it yet, but this next part, this is the other color of the Folkart Glitterific paint. It's called Clear Hologram, and this is what I'm going to be putting on the sand. And then I dabbed a little bit of this also on the upper left-hand part of the clouds, sort of like maybe it's midday and the sun is just to the upper left of this painting. You can kind of visualize. So it's shining down on the white parts of the ocean and the upper left-hand parts of the clouds. And then I'm just really laying this on very, very heavy and very thick in the sand. I have seen other paintings before where the sand was the most texturized, and I thought it was super cool. So I am just really laying it on heavy here. Of course, just go with your preference and use your judgment. So I wanted to share with you all what inspired this painting. So I was making some gifts for some friends, and I found these really cool letters at Michael's. And these are approximately 3 inches tall and maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. and they're just very lightweight. They're wooden. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do a really abstract ocean and beach and sky scene, and then on the back I'm going to write a little message, and I just wanted to share that with you all in case you're looking for a handmade gift that will be treasured. It's one of a kind, and of course I had to add the glitter. So those are just really fun to do as well, and I just hope that you are inspired to get creative. So that wraps up the video lesson on the ocean painting. I hope you really enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your feedback. I wanted to show you all, if you display a painting like this on the wall, it's very helpful to consider your lighting and have your lighting on the side and directed at your painting at a particular angle so that it highlights the areas that you want to highlight. So I hope, again, this has been helpful and fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you again really soon.